Evening, everyone. I'm Agamjeet Dang, the Chief Operating Officer at Executive Access India, and your host for tonight. A very warm welcome to everybody in the audience. Friends, reboot, reinvent, and refresh are some of the buzzwords that the corporate world has been using quite often in the past, especially in the last few months. With businesses slowly starting to coming back to normal and employees also beginning to strut back to offices, there is a growing realization that businesses and workplaces may never be the same again. It calls for a total reboot. And one function that is at the forefront of all this critical transformation is human resources. How will organizations emerge from this new normal? And how would HR facilitate this change? Does this challenge present any unique opportunities? And what would those be? This and much more. In our today's discussion with one of the fantastic list of HR leaders that we have, please join me in welcoming our panelists for the evening. Our first panelist for the evening is Amitav Mukherjee, the Head of Human Resources at ITC Limited. Amitav, an alumnus of XLRI, has been with ITC since 1995 and has been with them for almost 2.5 decades now. He's seen the group emerge into one of the largest and most diverse conglomerates of its own times and has contributed immensely to its growth and its journey. And today heads HR for them. Welcome to the panel, Amitav.
Thank you, Agam. Excited to be part of this.
Likewise. Our second panelist for the evening is Amit Malik, the Chief People, Operations and Customer Service Officer at Aviva India. Well, there aren't too many hats that Amit can't wear today. In his current role, Amit leads the people function, operations, grievance redressal, and customer service along with administration for Aviva India. Prior to joining Aviva, Amit has worked in leadership roles in Bank of America, RBS, American Express, and GSK Consumer Healthcare. He's a management graduate from Symbiosis Institute of Business Management, Pune. Welcome to the panel, Amit.
Thanks, Agam. Thanks, Ronesh, for having me. Hello, everybody.
Our third panelist for the evening is Deepak Reddy, the Group Head of Human Resources at Bajaj Finserv. Again, someone who's donned multiple hats spanning across sales, product management, and human resources all his life, and he's done that with aplomb. Deepak is currently the Group Head of Human Resources for Bajaj Finserv Limited and has played a key role in transforming the group into one of the financial powerhouses of today. He's previously worked with American Express, Standard Chartered, and Onida. He's a management graduate from TAPMI and he's also an avid biker. Welcome to the panel, Deepak.
Thank you very much and good evening to everybody.
Our fourth panelist for the evening is Rohit Thakur, the Chief Human Resource Officer of Paytm. Rohit, again an alumni from XLRI, comes with 25 years of experience in HR. He's worked with some of the biggest names in corporate world across manufacturing, energy, information technology, and BFSI. He's currently associated with Paytm as the CHRO. Prior to this, he was heading human resources at Accenture India, and before that, he was the head of HR at Microsoft India. He's also worked with organizations like GE and Eicher in the past. Welcome to the panel, Rohit.
Thanks so much. It's great to be here.
Wonderful. Our final panelist for the evening is Saurav Govil, the President and CHRO of Wipro Limited. Saurav has been instrumental in Wipro's transformational journey and has shaped people, processes, and organization structures in the past few years to help Wipro prepare for the next spurt of growth. He joined Wipro in 2009, having worked with organizations like ITC and GE in the past. He started his career with ITC and worked with them for 12 years, last as the head of HR for the tobacco division. Subsequently, he worked with GE for 8 years. And Saurav again is an alumni from XLRI Jamshedpur. Welcome to the panel, Saurav.
Welcome and good evening to everyone. Thank you.
So welcome to all the panelists. And to moderate the session, I have with me our Managing Director, Ronesh Puri. He's an advocate and a banker before he ventured into search. He's got 25 years of experience of leading this company and has placed over 600 candidates, including over 100 CEOs and board level searches across sectors. Welcome, Ronesh. And before I hand over the stage to you, a couple of quick guidelines for everybody in the audience. For those who have logged in from their mobile devices, please swipe left and right to see the speaker and the moderators and the panelists. Secondly, there is a Q&A button at the bottom of your screen. Please feel free to start sharing your questions and we'll try and answer them towards the later half of the segment. Over to you, Ronesh.
Thank you very much, Agam. And a hearty and warm welcome to all the panelists. When you see 5 eminent HR heads in front of you, you get humbled and you feel also very proud. We've assembled, I think, 5 of the finest minds that we could find in India. And collectively, they have over 100 years of HR experience. Somebody told me I was old. Look, I'm not even 100. I'm still young. And it's not only the experience that they bring on the table, but the bandwidth that they exhibit, and they will today, I think will be a treat for everyone. Just before the seminar, I was chatting up with all of them, and I told them, one rule of the game is you will speak the truth and nothing but the truth. And all 5 of them are so eminent and believe in the values and commitments they have made. Friends, you can be sure that today what you will get is the truth and nothing but the truth. When you have all of them in front of you, my job is simple. I just have to ask questions and listen and learn. Friends, all of you have an opportunity to listen to all of them, and they're going to talk about not only opportunities and challenges, but also, we didn't tell them about that, we are also going to pick their brains as to what they see happening in the future. So they're going to crystal gaze as well. So welcome all of you. Let's get started. Saurabh, I start and begin with you. What has been the most difficult part of the post-COVID world? And what is it that one thing that you never thought you'll have to do, which you've ended up doing?
First of all, the most difficult part for us was to just imagine, Ronesh, how things are going to unfold. And every day was a new day for us as we got into this entire pandemic. But the biggest wow for us was that we never expected that 95% of our employees would be working effectively from their homes. Something which is unheard of for us, and I think technology played a big role for us. And then that's the future which is there. One thing which I did and which I never thought I'll be doing is be counting where people are today, literally stalking them and finding out are they in their homes or are they in their friend's place or are they sitting with their parents in their hometowns and, checking out where they are. So that was what we were trying to do and get people going, both from a safety point of view and second from a work point of view. So that's what it's been. It's been a really enriching journey for us in terms of learnings over the last 3 months. The boundaries have been pushed. We have done things which we never imagined. Clients have been, been amazed at what they never believed could have happened sitting at home. So it's completely put the entire industry, I would say, on its head. If 3 months back, 100 days back, you asked me that 180,000 people would be working from home, I would say, are you joking? The reality. Today, it's a reality. So that sums it up in terms of, very exciting times.
And 3 of your biggest challenges today?
Our biggest challenge first is in terms of the immediate is about the pandemic itself and the fear around it and, the need for people to get over it and what is required. So that's one. Second for us is a secure workplace. And our workplace today starts from, getting people from their homes to our own premises and getting them back. Can we create a safe bubble across this entire, and that's the second thing which is there. And third is business future. What is the business future in terms of what are the things that impact us? Because there have been, since this industry serves all the different verticals, or different industry segments, some of them have got severely impacted, like hospitality or, like transportation, or, some of them have not got so impacted. So we have a portfolio which is some have got really red, some are not so red, and some are really impacted. So we're trying to see how do we manage this and see the future for all of us. So that's what the 3 things, if you ask me, would be for me today: safety of employees, safe workplace, and the future and the future of the business. When you say future of the business, it impacts in terms of job, employment, growth, all the 9 yards.
Amitabh.
Yes, Ranesh.
What 3 years have been yours, and how are they different from Saurabh's challenges?
Let me start by saying that I think at the beginning of this crisis, and it has really been unprecedented, we had several products in our portfolio which were really essential products, and manufacturing had to continue, in factories which are responsible for these essential products. So I think very similar to what Saurabh said, firstly, was ensuring employees feel safe. They feel that coming to work is not going to pose a risk to them. And under those circumstances, run operations when locally you're confronted with a huge number of challenges. And I think ensuring that we put in place the strictest of safety and risk mitigation protocols, I think was the task number one. The second, I think I would say, is this crisis also throws up some opportunities. And we have been pushing our folks to say, what can you do differently in this environment? Are there opportunities for being innovative with products? There is this consumer sentiment and a need for safety, for depending on reliable products, for depending on products which have consistency in the past. So we have seen this huge surge in demand for packaged food products. And some of our brands, therefore, have been positively affected. So the huge task of ensuring that we reach consumers, that we are able to supply these products and be able to do it in a manner which is safe, I think has been the second challenge. And I think the third challenge, which I'm sure many would have also faced here, is the fact that we're all working remotely, and over 8,000 managers plugged in from home. For the first time, we haven't experimented with that at such a scale. That has been a huge challenge. And it has, I think, we have all learned on the way as we have proceeded with this situation.
Rohit, how is it different for you? And the ones that they have named, you can't name.
No, I think thanks, Ranesh. I think I was just reflecting on the topic, and also as my colleagues were speaking, I think I was in aircraft and GE aircraft engines when 9/11 happened. So I was in the industry that got impacted with 9/11. I was in GE Capital when financial services, kind of happened. Financial meltdown happened in 2008. So I saw the financial services industry, get impacted. I was never there in any world war. My parents have seen partition. I haven't seen partition, fortunately. So if I look at the crisis today, and having gone through the last two I spoke about, 9/11 and financial crisis, yes, it's different. It's challenging. I don't think this entire safety element, the thing of being safe, and sitting in the house for 4 months, is something that I don't think I've ever anticipated. I don't think my colleagues would have ever anticipated. But I don't think it's as bad as as some of what has happened to the world in the past, and what the world has come out of, very, very successfully. I think the silver lining in the entire thing is that we're all in it together. And unlike aircraft engines, unlike financial crisis, all industries at some level, have been impacted, by this change. But I really look at it as an opportunity. If you look at the last 3-4 months, the initial part, as sort of mentioned, was that of uncertainty. I mean, our company was, I think we are over 4.5 lakh COVID cases in India. Paytm, and the 6th case in India was ours, right? The 6th person, unfortunately, who got COVID was our employee. And it had just come to India then, right? So that ambiguity of, how do you navigate through a crisis or a kind of a virus that you just heard about, you don't know how to go through, was a challenge. Okay, but I think if I think of it today, after 4 months, I think the way the companies come together, we figured out ways of working. Like how Saurabh mentioned, 100% of the people working from home was something you would never have thought. Okay, but we've done that. We've saved costs in a very, very big way. We've given up offices, office space, and we've saved costs to that. And we think this working from home will continue, over the next year, like through the entire year right now, right? So I think some of the challenges that we had thought we would have actually turned out to be opportunities and a different way of working, agile working, which I think every organization is doing right now, because we're all in this together. So I would say challenges are very similar. I think how we react to the challenges could be similar or different, but it comes down to employee safety. It comes down to how do we keep the business business viable? How do we reimagine the business? How do we use talent, from one business that is not doing very well into a different business that is, doing very well? And I think most importantly, keep the morale up. I think the challenge of leadership in these times, a face-to-face element of leadership, a face-to-face element of interaction is very, very different, when you're, as compared to a Zoom call and having leaders engage, with employees across. And I think in these times, virtual leadership again becomes a very interesting challenge or a very interesting learning opportunity. So I really think of what we are going through as things could have been much worse. Things are far better, than what they could be. One thing being that everybody's in it together. It's not one sector getting like just hammered and everybody else kind of enjoying their lives outside. All of us are getting hammered in some ways or the other, and all of us are working together to come through it. And that's the opportunity that I really see in what's going on right now.
Thank you, Rohit. Deepak, you and Amit are in the financial services. Very different. How's the world been different, and what have been your challenges?
So, financial services have been tough, and I'll come to that. I think there are largely three phases of what we're going through. The first whole phase of, crisis and adversity brings the best out of people. And irrespective of whether it's financial services or any industry, we have all gone through the last 3 months where, suddenly you had to work from home, everybody, and, that crisis situation, everything's worked. Which company is telling you that things haven't worked, right? All networks have worked. They're able to get to customer, all your back-end operations, the processing of millions of customers, everything has worked, right? And that's what adversity does. And what's also happened during that phase, the first phase, is it brought excitement, right? It was a pandemic, but you talk to everybody, there's excitement. You know what, I'm working from home. People said, and everybody will tell you how, they're working much more than they've ever worked in their lives. Okay. And, that was the phase. And I think that phase is just about getting over, anything new or anything challenging brings excitement, brings life. And that's a phase we have gone through. I think we're now in the phase where the realization of the pandemic and what it can do, which I call the psychological phase, is beginning to start, right? This is the phase where people, are truly now saying, what, the excitement has gone, but what's in it for me? What's in it for my company? What's the impact? Because, everybody has done cost cutting. Everybody have tightened belts. Everybody have put hiring on hold, right? And so those negative messages, it's going to remain only negative. It's going to psychologically impact people. It'll psychologically impact companies. Okay. And, both top line, bottom line, which means now the wheels also have to start moving. Now you can't start moving the wheels in the current situation. So what's the messaging you're doing to employees? And when do employees get the most comfort? They get the most comfort and happiness and confidence when they're working. So the key thing is to make sure that your whole engine is working, and people are occupied doing meaningful work, right? And that's where, the whole leadership viewing this as an opportunity, as Rohit rightly said, and building capabilities, building those new age, the tomorrow's mechanisms and products and processes, accelerating it really fast is going to keep people occupied. And even as you take tough decisions, it'll keep a sense of pride, and they say and a sense of well-being. The third phase we will get into later is, of course, everybody is accelerating digitization. And if the envelope of business, which is the size of business, doesn't grow, it will lead to significant job loss, right? Because as you're accelerating digital was anyway happening irrespective of this pandemic, but pandemic has just accelerated it, right? So unless your business as itself grows, because if you're going to remain in the business, let's say pre-COVID levels, and you accelerate digitalization, the number of roles are going to come down, right? So you have to, the whole responsibility on companies to reskill existing employees to manage the new roles, and also expanding the envelope to make sure there are enough roles, right? That's the phase which we will shortly probably come in after 5-6 months, that will start coming in. But overall, I think it's not been too bad, right? Now financial services, are we hit badly? Yes, we are. I would say not. I mean, insurance companies are doing fairly well, but on the lending side, there are challenges because of the rightful policy of government that they had to make. but you have to take it in your stride, right? I mean, and that's where the men and the boys, the picture comes out. Where are companies which have been built for the long term, and where are companies who have been built for the short term will come out. We've always believed in a philosophy of long term profitable growth, and that orientation of ours, I'm sure, will hold us well in today and for tomorrow. So I would say it's exciting. I mean, going forward, it'll be exciting, and you will have to go through the pain. Both go together.
Amit, I'm sure you have a little different perspective to all this. Obviously, you heard, and what all the four have said is absolutely rational and correct. And that would be the priorities. But do you foresee any other priority for, and what has been your biggest challenge?
I think, first of all, let me break the myth that Deepak said is that insurance companies are doing well. I think we are suffering as much from a sector and an individual company perspective as anybody else is. And going by the IRDA report itself, the sector has seen a degrowth of 30% plus over the last few months, but I'll come to that later. I think the biggest few challenges, while everyone has said, and I'm like the tail ender with illustrious opening batsman and the middle order who has spoken. But I think
you can only score sixes. I mean.
Slog overs, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm the Dhoni. But anyways, yes. I think the first, when we talk about challenges, Ronesh, I think the first and foremost was to bring that BCP document alive. And I think it would be true for all of us. The BCP was always second site or second location. No one had a BCP that I know of which was working from home 24/7 when the world came to a stop. So I think that whole piece about getting the BCP alive, and for an industry like ours, which is very regulated and where the whole data piece works, data security works so heavily in the favor of coming to office and working from office rather than home. I think that was the biggest challenge to kind of get that going, because we had to be there for our customers. While I may say that and it's a fact that the industry degrew, but from our customer standpoint, the whole anxiety was there. And for them, the moment of truth, which was fast approaching, was what happens to my policy, what happens to me, what happens to my family. I think that was number one challenge. The second challenge, which for us was, and stemming from my earlier point, is how do we get employees to be productive from home? And when we looked at our employee base, we categorized them in three parts. Obviously, there were some employees, who were doing more than 100% and they were enabled to work from home. There were some in the middle, and there were some who were wanting to contribute, but for variety of reasons, were not able to contribute. And then how do I bring that anxiety? Building on the point that Deepak said, that was one way to, a challenge to address that anxiety, to say, if I'm not contributing, then in this whole negative news era of, job losses and salary cuts, how do I make myself relevant? And how do we as an organization and people function? Deal with that challenge was something that was there. And I think the third challenge was, how do you keep people engaged, and how do you communicate right so that they don't get anxious by listening to news and the rising COVID numbers that started to happen all of a sudden, so they don't become a part of that whole paranoia that the world's going to come to an end. As I always say, I think this was the first time we actually encountered VUCA in true sense. We all talked about VUCA, we've had conferences about VUCA, but this was the first time where we saw uncertainty, we saw ambiguity, we saw volatility in terms of economy, and we saw complexity in getting all of this work. So I think this all came together for me, and those were the three challenges that I'd say.
Thank you very much. You've done well as a slog hitter, Amit.
Thank you.
Amitabh, you wanted to be an economist.
Long time back, yes.
Yeah, I don't know whether it's, but Amitabh has a shrewd insight, so we're going to put you on the top spot. Now, when do you think it's going to be back to normal? Number one. And which industry do you think will actually recover the fastest?
I think in terms of being back to normal, and I hope I'm wrong, I think that's not going to happen till we have a vaccine, and I think it'll take up to 2 years. But I think we will all learn to live in a new normal with all the safety precautions, all the products and services oriented to this new reality. And I think that will take about 6 months for organizations to figure out how they can deliver products and services in a safe and reliable manner. So true normalcy, I think, is some way away, But I think organizations will really adapt in the next 3 to 4 months to be able to live reasonably well in this new reality. In terms of which sector would come back the earliest, I would reckon, and I hope it is hospitality, because I think with people being locked up at home for so long, I think if you give them a reassurance that you come to a place of luxury or entertainment and you're able to do that safely in a reliable way with all the social distancing norms, etc., I think we should see good traction in that area.
And what are the couple of things that you've done in ITC, Amitabh, in the post-COVID world, which you're proud of?
Well, I think the first measure I would say would be giving employees the assurance about safety. And that has also meant not just work practices, but a lot of investment in technology, thermal scanners, UV scanners, some algorithms on video to help you pick up any violations of social distancing. So that's a whole new piece which we have had to invest in from an infrastructure point of view, intensive training and continuous reiteration of the same message that you cannot violate certain safety norms. And since you're dealing with large masses in a particular place of manufacture, you have to be extremely careful, not just own labor, but also contingent labor. I think the second thing which we've been able to do well, and I'm proud of, is we've been able to recognize some of the folks out there who've been in the factory, who've been in the sales force day in and day out, landing up at work, not working from home, and ensuring that products reach consumers. I think we have really recognized that effort, and people have been extremely excited about the fact that they have been acknowledged. I think the third element of the piece would be accessibility. We have set up a business contingency team and a central contingency team, and we have been extremely responsive, because I think in the crisis, every day is a new day. And I think you should not feel embarrassed to change course, to make corrections in what you gave as a direction 2 days back. You have to really watch how the situation is evolving. And I think we've been able to get back to businesses, to people out there seeking direction on what needs to be done, with the full knowledge that the institutional strength of the organization is behind them in whatever decision they take. And I think that has allowed people to come together in a crisis and be able to deliver. I think I would say those are some things which I'm kind of glad that I was there when these happened.
Wonderful. No, outstanding. I think the very fact, I don't know how many of you are aware, the Savlon product was conceived and out of the sanitizer in 22 days flat, which is really awesome. I'm there, so a lot to be proud of. Saurabh wanted to become a sportsman, and he loves sports. Now, Amitabh said that the new normal will come after 2 years, Saurabh. What is your guess? How much time is going to take for the new normal, for total normalcy to prevail?
I think I would concur with what Amitabh said, not very different, that we will learn to live the new ways. And that will become normal for all of us. So that's the way we look at it. I don't know when vaccines will happen, what will happen. When this entire thing started, I had hoped that come July, all of us will be back in our offices, and I don't see anything happening for the next 3 months at least, So very clearly, it's very, very different from what we had conceived at one of time. But as you said, I think as a sportsman or cricketing parlance, let me put it as Amit has started this, is that this is a test match. We'll have to learn to live it session by session, and things will change. There'll be ups and downs. The day of T20 would be as an organization much more resilient as individuals to see this thing. That's the shift which I personally believe. Technology in particular, the impact is not as severe as in some other sectors. So I also see, insurance we heard about, hospitality we heard about, travel, so there's significant dip in revenues. That's not the case for technology, because we are able to serve more. We are an enterprise business, and we are able to serve large part of our customers remotely. Second is the services business from India was worked on the premise of serving a lot of our customers remotely. That was the premise when you outsource and you work from India, serving customers across the globe. These pillars were there which helped us as we move forward. From a business standpoint, I expect things to move faster, especially in the newer areas. And I also believe for the world across all sectors, if there's one way which will take us out through all this, it will be technology. Whatever sphere, be it in terms of humanitarian aspects, be it in terms of safety, be it in terms of products, services, technology will play an extremely crucial role as we move forward. So this is what I believe will be the game in the future.
Very good. Rohit?
Yeah.
Sort said it's a T20 match. I think it's a T10, at least in your industry. So what changes have you noticed in terms of how you do business to what it was in the pre-COVID times? And how are you trying to reconstruct the business as we move forward? Because it's a very different turf, very different batting wicket.
Absolutely, Ranesh. And again, in the same analogy of cricket, I would say each team or each person has to play their innings. You can't have a Tendulkar, you can't rely on Tendulkar to take you through the entire innings every time, in the match. You've got to have different players do their bit. Somebody scores 35, somebody scores 50, somebody scores 60 at a certain pace. There are slog overs. You kind of get to the end of the slog overs. So I think that's what we're doing. We're working in a very agile fashion. We've got different teams. Like you mentioned, some of our businesses, have been hit more by by what's happening in the country than others, right? So we've got teams in those businesses, in travel, entertainment, some of those businesses whose businesses aren't really going forward. So how do we take those people and look at their skills and leverage them into businesses that we want to grow, that we are seeding for the future? So how do we move talent over there? How do we train talent over there? How do we have teams focused on costs? Okay, so while we're looking at growth and building businesses and looking at different licenses from the government to kind of come in and set up new businesses, how do we cut costs where we can? And we've got teams focused on that. How do we society as a whole? All of us also have a role to play as responsible organizations in society and not just think about business. So what can we do towards elevating some of the pandemic concerns and kind of contributing towards society, training, or giving supplies to our people in society? So I think what we're doing is regrouping our business, looking at talent to move across, retraining our organization where we have to be, consolidating for the future, and thinking of being what can we do as a responsible business. I think it's a good time because again, a company like ours, for us, a penny saved is a penny earned. So as we look at it, it goes straight to our bottom line. If we save money, we kind of yes, our business plans, what we thought of in the month of February, have definitely got impacted, over the last 4 months. But if we can save costs in a certain fashion, repurpose that cost for a certain element in hopefully in 2 or 3 months, where we can conserve that cash and kind of do something else, it'll come to our advantage. So I'm sure all my colleagues here are looking at different strategies around cost, around growth, and everything else. But that's what we're doing, because it's to me, I say everybody plays their innings and their part, and no one player in these times becomes a hero. I think we need many heroes, many heroines, and many people to serve their purpose as the company emerges and I'm very optimistic, emerges stronger after this than weaker.
Rohit, would you look at talent from a different lens right now to face the current uncertainty, which is obviously increased? Or if you were to hire, you would look at the same characteristics as you did earlier?
Ramesh, I would say with a slightly more bent on leadership, and I would say employee centricity. I think everything else that I was looking for in the past, I would continue with that. I would look up for somebody who's agile. I would look for somebody who, the 4 E's. I mean, I assess people based on the 4 E's, and I've been doing that for the last 15 years. The who gives the energy of a person when you interact with them. Ability to energize others. Ability to execute, and the ability to take decisions. And I think if I look at these 4 E's, and I think of that in the context of uncertainty, ambiguity, creativity, innovation, reimagining everything else. I think if I look at the core 4 E's in anybody that I was looking at yesterday, I would also look at the same thing today. But yes, the level of resilience, I think I would look at higher resilience. I would look at higher leadership, and I would look at a higher level of employee connect. Not assuming A plus B equal to C, but really looking at what is behind the A, what is behind the B, to actually ensure that I get the C that I want to, because not everything is kind of linear in these terms, as you're working today.
Thanks. Deepak, I request you to crystal gaze a little bit. You're not in 2020, you're in 2022. 2 years from now, when Amitabh predicts, things will be back to normal, and we'll hold him to that. Now, 2022, HR, what do you see changing? What do you think will be different, and what will be the challenges that HR will grapple with in 2022?
I wish I was a crystal gazer, much more. Okay. Some things will change significantly, and a lot of things will remain as they are. In 2022, both will go together. It's not like today is one HR which is completely going to change in 22 and it's going to become something else. Probably that'll be 2025, right? And where I come from is the whole world. India on its own is a very robust economy, huge potential, and demand will come back. Now, to your earlier question, will demand come back in 3 months, in 6 months, in 12 months? Is a question mark. Okay, because confidence is there. Like if you see what's happening in the rural markets, or even on the on the insurance side, especially transactional products and general insurance, customer demand is there. Rural markets are behaving wherever they're opened up, they behave as if nothing has happened, right? And so and as confidence comes back, you will see that the pent up demand will come and play out, and people will start consuming, right? It's a question of 3 months, not 3 months, definitely not 3 months. It's a question of 6 months or 12 months or 15 months from now. To manage that cycle, you will have to carry forward a lot of things that you're today doing, especially in large retail organizations. Right? That's one side of it. The second side of it is, as digitization gets accelerated, and I keep using the word accelerated because this is not something that we have just come up with now. This is something for the last 3 years companies have been working on, and probably what you wanted to do by 2025, you'll probably now do by 2023, right? As that becomes, as the gig economy comes, as the workplace will move from a place where people come to work, it will now become a place where different type of people, diverse set of people come to create something and to collaborate and not just to come into work, right? As those things happen, of course, HR practices will change. Okay, for example, one of the biggest traits that employees, and I would say especially in the services sector, in large command structures, that you have in retail, is the ability to communicate. Oral communication, verbal communication, the last 3 months have shown that is a key trait and a key skill that isn't understood well enough, right? And to add to that, if you are to do communication, psychological communication also, right? So you communicate orally, you communicate verbally, and you have the ability to connect with somebody, right? Even psychologically in giving that comfort, right? Those skills will start coming in, right? Sum and substance, overall, I would still say, however, I've always said this for many years now, the whole model of HR has to change. HR can no more be, an organization encompassing itself. I've always believed that business needs to run their people and HR only enables and governs, right? This whole bit about HR being both the creator, the doer, and the governance mechanism, I don't believe it works. And if you see most other functions, it doesn't happen. It should be HR where it happens, where you say what you have to do, you do it yourself, and you govern and say what have you done it right or wrong. In different levels, of course. But businesses owning people and HR enabling them to own people and just governing people is the role of HR, right? And that's something that I believe has to accelerate and will get accelerated.
Thank you, Deepak. Amit, I think Deepak pointed out very well that, HR has to play a far greater role in business. And I think that's a fact. We were in fact chatting up with Manoj Kohli and he said this exactly the same thing. Now, how do you think HR can play a greater role? And what do you think has changed in terms of HR, the way it is viewed by business today, vis-a-vis what it was pre-COVID?
I'm going to be a little provocative here, Ronesh.
Wonderful, wonderful. That's always a tail-ender's job.
No, I've always never agreed with this line saying HR has to play more role in the business. We don't ask of that of any other function, be it marketing, be it finance, be it operations. Why do we ask of HR? Why do we start on the defensive? I think HR plays a very significant role in everyday functioning, and it has to continue to do the role that it plays, and that is why it is there for a certain reason. Right? Yes, the role of HR has changed. People talk about seat on the table, voice on the table. I always believe that it's the organization culture and an individual who embodies whatever that is, from a standpoint. When I look at what is going to be, to your question, I think HR will have to not be satisfied itself by saying I'm a voice on the table. I think this whole time has shown our ability to shape the agenda and to direct the agenda. When this crisis took place, everyone looked at us in the organization to say, can you help us? Can you support us? Can you take the lead and direct it? And we have been able to shape and direct the agenda, and that's where we need to continue to go on. I think that's where we need to recognize the power that we have as a function, to be able to shape people, to be able to get them to start and execute. Rohit said execution is something that he looks for when he hires people, but we can enable people to execute, and that's where our strength lies, to make it happen for the organization, for the business, for our shareholders and customers. I think we forget that that's the role that we play. I think a couple of things will change when we view ourselves as a function. We all talk about employee engagement. We all talk about employee experience. I think we will have to learn as an organization, how do we balance physical and virtual employee engagement and employee experience? Gone are the days when we could say, you've joined the organization, you didn't get a laptop, my friend, or your email ID took 2 days, not my problem, talk to the IT head. I think that whole virtual employee experience, virtual employee engagement will have to be owned by us, because that is the future. Irrespective of what percentage of population works from home or works from the physical office. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing is we have to look at, in this whole period of time, the whole organization is looking towards us to define how do they measure performance. I did touch upon it earlier, but I think today we have to take lead and say, this is how we will measure performance and enable rewards and recognition, something that Saurabh touched on in his point, saying how important it is to enable that. And that is where we need to step up and say, this is how we will do it. This is how the organization is doing. And when the HR leader or the HR person does that, it is important for the HR person to bring his or her own learning and understanding of the business and tie it up with the process that is in the organization to see how the twain shall meet. And I think that's the second thing that I think that will change, and that will be the impetus on us. I think the third is we have to show the path of how do we navigate the future of work and workplace in the post-COVID era. And I think that's the responsibility that we carry. How do we enable business leaders to navigate that path, which I think is going to be very, very different. You asked when will the normalcy return? I don't think normalcy will ever return, because I don't think it's important for us to go back to the normal. There is a new normal which has a lot of learnings, and we all need to understand how we keep those learnings that we have learned like Rohit said, continue to do what we were doing good, take these learnings, and then help the business navigate the future workplace and work. Those are the points that I want to share.
Thank you very much, Amit. A quick 2 questions from all of you, short responses. Start with you, Rohit. How do you build a high performance culture in this remote world?
I think authenticity, the word comes to me immediately is authenticity, by being authentic yourself. And authenticity means by trying to be a high performer yourself and calling out what you're not good at, like yourself, and asking for help. Because I think in this world, one thing I've seen, my colleagues can on the call can either agree or disagree, the spirit of the employee. You talk about what organizations have done, the spirit of the employee, how employees have come together, in such a uncertain time and have given their best. Again, we're working remotely in different towns, different villages, different cities, working on Wi-Fi, no Wi-Fi, VPN, whatever else is amazing. And I just think the more the employee sees leaders as vulnerable, authentic, communicative, and setting aspirational goals, I think a high performance culture, will get built.
Wonderful. Saurav, is actually proving productivity a challenge for you in these times?
I think, this is a question often asked. So there are 2 sets of people. One who are serving customers and their outcomes, and ours is the people intensive, and these are our products. People are our products. So you get billed and you get paid. So there is very clear productivity, that it's outcome driven. But for people who are not directly working with the customers, there's a question mark. But I think the premise which we have to start looking at is we have to start with the premise of trust. Trusting our people that they're doing the right thing. We start with the premise that, how do I measure productivity? Is he slacking me? Is he working 8 hours? Is he, making sure they're not taking advantage of this thing? And that comes to be completely different headset and mindset is required for all of us. So for productivity is very clearly for us outcomes, and outcomes are well defined either with a client or in a non-client situation. So that's not a challenge at all. However, my request to organization and us is to look at the issue of productivity. 99% of the people come to work to do a good day's job, and they will make a difference. And we need to trust our people. That premise has to come very clearly.
Thank you very much. Agam, please take over, and the ones that have to be probed deeper, please do a good job in terms of that. I will come back very soon. And over to you now.
I will try my best, Ranesh. And there are a lot of questions coming in from the audience as well. So I will try and ask as many as I can. But firstly, I'll start in a different order. So Deepak, my question to you, is Bajaj Finserv has seen a tremendous bull run, over the last 4 or 5 years. So much so that the organization and the group has come to be known as the poster boy in financial services. How are you managing, this crisis, and especially where majority of your people would have only seen tremendous amount of growth, and if there was a relatively subdued quarter, I'm sure heavens will fall. How are you managing this crisis from a people standpoint and from an organization standpoint?
Okay, and I'm assuming your specific question is more oriented towards the lending company Bajaj Finance, but that's the way you asked the question. Okay, firstly, all I can say is we are extremely confident about the solidness of what we have built over the years, and that gives you more than enough confidence and solidity for the future. So we'll only get stronger. That's as a starting point. Number 2. I think this is where true value system and solid business practices come to the fore, right? You can't say, today is COVID, I'll switch a button, I'll change the way of working, right? There is continuity with what you are as an organization, which has been built over years, right? That solidity of organization is what gives employees at least a sense of belonging, a sense of pride, a sense of trust that Saurabh spoke so well about. And trust is the most important thing. And trust comes from a sense of pride in the work you do, right? And that's the phase that we're coming from. So even now, as you get into this pandemic issue, and of course, when people start, the volumes come down as a result, being a retail organization, variable pay is a very important part. Variable pay comes down, you take actions and their anxiety. If the organization and employees still feel a sense of trust that this organization knows what it's doing, it is walking the path, right? It's a temporary phase that will go away. And I'd like to believe the solidity of our culture will remain. I'll talk about two facets of our culture and our DNA. We've been speaking, not now, we've been speaking about this for the last 7 years to every new hire who came in, every leadership conclave, every time Mr. Sanjay Bajaj speaks to somebody, right? We say founders mindset, okay? And we call them leadership mindsets is the word we use. So founders mindset and long-term profitable growth. Amongst 3-4 other things, these true value systems we have been pushing for the last 4 or 5 years, right? So when a tough situation comes, what changes? Nothing changes. As long as the employee trusts, right? Okay, I'll give another example of where trust comes from and a sense of confidence comes in for employees. For the last 8 years or 10 years probably, pay for performance is something that we have not just spoken about, that we have practiced. Except for the CEO or MD and his direct reports, okay, and that, let's say for about 150 people, except for 150 people out of 20,000 people there, everybody for the last 10 years have been on a system of variable incentive. You get paid in the ratio of target achievement, okay, and we have got better and better and better. So employees today, and I'd like to believe, and I know they believe, they say that same principle that applied for good times applies for bad times. It's as simple as that. You are not changing your orientation, you're not changing your value system, but you're building a sense of trust in employees, right? And employees value that. We have enough employees coming and say, no problem, sir, the majority, because we know the company. The company stood by us in good times. Right now we're going through a tough phase. We'll stand by the company. But they will stand by only if they have a sense of pride and assurance that, this company knows what it's doing, right? It's acting. They're not just sitting it and allowing it to go. You're being agile and you're acting on it. And that DNA is something that holds us a very good. Short term, yes, cutting costs down, no hiring. Those are temporary phases. Are we being upfront with employees on it? Are we being transparent to employees on it? And that's where the confidence of employees come in. And I believe that's what we are. Trust is a core word. And that trust is what's most associated with the Bajaj Group. And we will work with trust. And that trust is what will get us back. And we don't have to change anything. Our value system, which stood true 3 months ago, is exactly the same thing that we follow even today.
Fantastic. And you also said, Deepak, that this is a time where men will get differentiated from the boys. Do you see this play out in financial services?
Yeah, I mean, not just financial services, play out everywhere. The smartest of business managers, what are they looking at right now? What are they smelling? The word is opportunity. The smarter companies, the smarter business managers will, as you manage and comfort and give leadership to your employees and cover them, you're also sensing opportunities. And opportunities will, and that's where the men from the boys will play out. And India, we are lucky. We are lucky, and we are in a country where demand hasn't gone anywhere. Demand is temporarily down, but demand will come back very strongly. We have very strong domestic demand. We don't have to worry about anything.
Sure. Wonderful. Thank you, Deepak. Of growth. And what are some of the lessons and learnings that you come, bringing from a lot of stable organizations that you worked in the past?
So it's a reflective question. I mean, it really makes me reflect now. I was saying, Ronesh, when the call is happening, that I used to love sports as I grew up, and I think one of the ways that I've looked at my career is, let's say if I play tennis, how do I play tennis in a Roland Garros versus a Wimbledon versus a Australian Open versus a US Open, right? It's the same service, same rules, but the surfaces are different, right? So be it manufacturing, be it technology, financial services, a startup like Paytm, I think I'm doing HR. The HR element is common, right? But how the ball bounces, how some places you do serve and volley, some places you do baseline, you play against the baseline, how your backhand is forehanded. So I guess in those elements, Paytm is one of those experiments, or let's say my own learning, and it's been tremendous. I've been here for about 7 months. It's been tremendous to see an organization that has stayed relevant. What the company was 20 years back to what the company is today, and what the company has been over the last 20 years, and reshaping itself has been very, very different. And I think what we will see over the next 2 to 4 years again would be quite transformational if the way that we are thinking they will. So I think in this organization, the element of speed, the element of ownership, what Deepak referred to at his company as well, long-term sustainable sustenance, building a responsible business. I mean, those tenets are all there. I think it's just the level of maturity, the level of where you want to take it to. I mean, that's what is different about the organization. Our aspirations are high. Our commitment level is high. We just at a different level from an HR perspective. We are at a different level today, and ambition, of course, is extremely high. And I think that's where both the challenge for me as a HR lead of coming into this company and the opportunity, for me and the rest of my peers in business and and in my team, coming. So there's a lot to do, a lot to learn from, a lot to experiment, and a lot to develop as compared to a Microsoft or a GE or an Accenture, which again have their own set of challenges, but they have their own set of evolution, as an organization from HR perspective.
And any timeless lessons that you see, which are, irrespective of, which organization and which phase you are in. I mean, any timeless leadership lessons that you can give our viewers today?
I think the similarities, and every time I've changed industry, like GE was one example where GE would throw you out every 3 years from a company and put you into a completely different industry. So kind of it really tested you that way. And every time there's a lump in your stomach to say, or in your throat, or a thing in your gut to say that, hey, will I succeed here? It's a completely different environment. And I think, like I said, you win some, you lose some. You don't win everything, but I think the eventual, as you come out of it, some commonalities that I've seen are like leadership is as critical, no matter what industry, what sector, what phase of evolution, crisis or growth. I would say leadership is as critical, like a differentiator. People needs an aspirational, be it an investment bank, be it a manufacturing setup, be it a tech company, be it China, be it the US, be it India. People's expectations, their desire to be heard, their desire to contribute, the ability to collaborate, and HR team's ability to harness potential, so that each individual can hopefully maximize their potential. That remains the same, irrespective of industry. And I also think third one I would say is a leader is nobody without the team. We may think of different leaders who come and speak at different forums, but they are nobody without the team, and it's the team that really helps them in the organization, get through. So I think these three commonalities, irrespective of industry, I think are have been big learnings, for me. Differences, of course, like the nature of the industry, how one reacts to a certain issue in a particular industry versus a different industry. Those things change. Like I say, the ball may be low on grass, the ball may be higher on clay, but it depends on how you hit the ball and where you stand. But I think those are differences. But I think the innate crux of playing tennis or what I said about leadership, people and teams are consistent across.
Wonderful, thank you, Amit. My question to you: insurance has always been, very, very push-driven sector. And, it's also said that, it's a sector which probably, hasn't changed as much, as one would want it to be or one would like it to be. What do you think, how would this sector emerge out of it? And what are your learnings? And, what tailwinds do you see in this business as a result?
You know, and I'll come to the first point that I made, which I told Ronesh, while this, I think there is if you look at insurance industry and while everyone, while we've degrown, but, the question that everyone starts by asking is, why would people not buy more insurance at this time? And why would they not focus on insurance? But, like we all know, and we've all read it so many times, there is a gap between an ideal, a rationale, and an actual behavior. And that all gets driven by the circumstances. So yes, insurance is a sector that I think will bounce back sooner than the other sectors. But if you look at March 25th onwards till I think last month, I would say May end or early June, there was this whole uncertainty about job losses, pay cuts, liquidity, that people wanted to preserve capital and keep it. I don't know whether you saw, ET ran a study and an article last week saying 25% of insurance consumers are willing to let go of their policy to save money and keep fluidity at home, which was a big number for someone like us, who depend on our customers and existing customers and collect money. So, and that's there. If you look at the health insurance sector, despite high medical costs, high uncertainty, the sector has seen a degrowth. But I think there are a couple of tailwinds that will help the sector. I think first and foremost is this whole mindset that insurance is about investment and not about me and my life and my family. I think that mindset has been shaken up by COVID. So I think that's the biggest tailwind from a sector standpoint. A lot of people will now focus on buying insurance for their needs, do the right need analysis, rather than coming from someone and saying, you know what, save some tax, buy this policy, don't renew it after 2 years. I think that's something that'll really, really help. I think the second tailwind, if you look at it, is I think there will be a substantiative innovation in the products. Regulator itself is taking the first step. They have asked us to do short-term products. I think there will be new products that will come up, and they will come up faster and sooner. Like all industries, we want to be agile, we want to be the first in the space. Like Deepak said, if you are not looking at what the need is and where the gap is, and if you are not the first mover, I think that'll start to happen, and that will benefit the customer. It will be very good for the customer. The regulator willingness to support innovation will help the customer, and I think that's something that will attract customer to the sector. The other thing that which I think will be a tailwind, and which we have seen, is this whole amalgamation of data and image. So if you look at insurance today, there is a long customer cycle that you need to sell, you need to meet people, you need to go through the process. I think data and image collaboration and all of our mindset to combine that two will help us decrease that cycle, get to the customer faster. I think that'll help us, rather than just being digital, that'll help us to look at the whole process of buying and selling, and that'll help. I think the fourth thing that's a big tailwind is we will all have to take far more risks as a sector and as an insurance company, and also the focus on risk management. It's a paradox what I'm saying, but I'll explain. When we say we will need to take more risk, we cannot have the customer is today not willing to go to a medical center and get a health checkup. They are not willing to step out of their house. Yet we want to issue policies and insure people. And how do we do that? Through video medicals, or and new age technologies from the confines of their home, where our risk taking ability will have to go up. We will have to underwrite far more risks than we write as an insurance company. And similarly, the focus on risk management from a future standpoint would increase. And I think those are the tailwinds that I think will help the insurance sector come up.
But do you think the sector would be, better than what it was earlier in terms of growth rates? Do you see 2020 being a year where you will grow, degrow as a sector, or you'll, just kind of break even on the last year numbers?
Well, that's a question that everyone wants an answer of. So how much are you willing to give me to answer that and get it right? But I don't think 2020 is going to be that year. But I think I think 2020, 21, 22 would be the year where like I said, we would come faster to growth. But I think 2022 would be remembered as a year which kind of which kind of made the insurance companies, look at themselves. See, the other thing that I think a lot of us are introspecting as an insurance company, Agam, is about the purpose of why we exist. I think it's the right time for every insurance company to go back to their own purpose as to why do we exist as an insurance company, and how do we fulfill that process. I think that purpose, I think that's a great opportunity for us to revisit our purpose and make sure that we align to our purpose. Like with us in Aviva, it is with you today for a better tomorrow. What could be a better purpose than that? And I think that's the whole hope that I have from an insurance sector standpoint.
Wonderful. 2021-22 is a year which everybody is now looking forward to. So I'll take that for a reply. Saurabh, my question to you, and you rightly said that I think technology is one sector which is, kind of carrying the flag for everybody in terms of this growth. And I think that's the sector which has to contribute the most to the growth. But at the same time, this is a sector which has, always had a huge amount of workforce, which has been pretty on traditional skills. So what do you see as the future of this sector? Do you think employees will hit refresh button more, and do they need to hit more? Or do you see, an amalgamation of the two which will carry on?
One is this industry has been working on the premise that you have to continuously reskill yourself. I think this event will help us accelerate that, because you become absolutely obsolete if you don't learn a new skill and a new language quickly and often. So to that extent, I just think that this entire shift will be much faster. That's point one. Second, you are right, bottom of the pyramid, routine, mundane jobs getting automated and digitized faster. People will have to move up the value chain to do higher end jobs, which actually means there'll be a trend of shifting from generalization to specialization. More you carry having a unique skill, you will be more in demand. If you don't, there will be a challenge. That's, I think, is across any sector that's what happens eventually. But this sector is more prone to it about the way the technologies are changing, the way it is changing. For us, hitting fresh is a everyday phenomena. We look at a potential of our employees based on how curious, how willingness to learn, and learning ability to be open to learn to new things. I think that's what will be trying. That will be the key.
Great, thank you. And Amitabh, over to you now. ITC as a sector, as a company, has always, wondered and delighted us as consumers, with many different segments and sectors that you keep getting into. I think it's a company which has probably diversified and gone into most diverse businesses, in the last 20 years that one would have ever seen anybody do. So how do you think, the future pipeline of business will look like? Do you think there are major shifts happening in terms of long-term decision making? And how would that play out for talent mobility for ITC?
I think there are two parts of the question. Let me address the first one initially about what you think would happen to the portfolio of products. Let me look at the FMCG space. And I think what we will encounter is that consumers who have probably been comfortable with local brands, with what we call as loose packaged products, they certainly want to shift to more organized players. And I think they may also want to shift to Indian players, with the emphasis on being local and being vocal about it. So I think that is one trend certainly we will encounter. The readiness to have smaller SKUs of the same product, so consumers who couldn't afford to try earlier will be in a position to try these products, I think is the other significant shift. The third would be this huge emphasis on wellness, nutrition, health. What does the product do for me? Is it reliable? Does it have a feature which in some way will contribute to my overall well-being? I think there's a lot of opportunity and space there. The other area which we are seeing a lot of demand is ready to eat and ready to cook food. I think with individuals not being able to go out, entertain themselves, they're looking at snacking options. They're looking at enjoying themselves over a movie at home and having food which is easy to consume, easy to prepare. So I think there's a lot of demand in that area. If you come to the hospitality space, I am sure that hotels will open up, and they have. But how do you give the consumer the confidence that he's walking into a place which is secure? So, for example, ITC Hotels has now got a certification from the National Hospitals Board to give that conviction and that confidence to the consumer that he is coming into a completely sanitized, hygienic place, contactless. So you check in without even having to meet anybody, go to your room. The food could even be placed outside your room. So those are some innovations and new products and adjacencies which one will have to experiment and try and serve to the consumer. Your question about talent mobility, I don't think the situation as such will change talent mobility. In ITC, the approach has always been that in the initial years, you establish your credentials in a business, you go really deep in operations, you work in the trenches, you establish your functional mastery. Having done that, we ensure that the best talent gets an opportunity to do what we call pillar jobs. And if an individual has to move between businesses to do those pillar jobs, so be it. And what are pillar jobs? They really demand not just functional competency, but also leadership competency, managerial capability, commercial acumen. I think these are jobs which in the front line allow you to exercise your muscle in all of these vectors. And more importantly, I think these are jobs where the buck stops with you. So, you can influence the levers, the inputs, and you're accountable for the outcome. And finally, I think as you grow a little more senior, you spend a couple of years in the organization, you really become an ITC resource fungible between businesses, subject to your own aptitude, your willingness and capability to pick up new skills in a new sector. We are present today in hospitality, paper, paperboard, printing, agri, FMCG. So if the individual has demonstrated that dexterity to be able to switch between sectors, certainly I think those opportunities are open as they go higher and they're more senior in the organization. That's how I would capture that.
Sure. Thank you. Thank you very much, Amitabh. And thank you to all the 5 panelists. Ranesh, I will request you to come back in. We are going for a little bit of a fun moment now with all our panelists. It is the time for some sidelights, time for some personal questions, time for some very, very quick rapid fire questions. So let's together grill our 5 panelists. I will pick mine first and then you can pick yours. Are we all ready?
I'm born ready.
So let's start with the born ready.
That's a good one.
Let's start with the born ready. Deepak, you go first. Deepak, what is one advice that you will give to your employees to thrive in today's environment?
Learn. Be agile, which means move, be open. Don't get stuck. Okay, one advice will be don't get stuck.
Don't get stuck. Great. Deepak, what do you think? The worst is ahead of us or behind us?
That question answer everybody always knows. The best is always ahead of you, so which means the worst is behind you.
Worst is behind you. Great. Great to have some optimism in the room. Okay, so when do you see, and this is more relevant for us, Deepak, but when do you see the hiring momentum return? 3 months, 6 months, 9, 12, more than 12?
I think it depends. We don't know how this pandemic is going to play out. Is there going to be a phase 2 of relapse pandemic? We don't know, so I can't answer that question fully, but as things stayed today, I would think 12 to 15 months.
12 to 15 months. And we have seen a new normal of people working from home, Deepak. So percentage of employees who you think will work from home permanently? 10%, 20%, 30, greater than 30?
Okay, so first, I don't know if it's new normal. Time will tell if it's the new normal. What is the new normal? So it's a question. I don't think today is definitely not the new normal. What the new normal is going to evolve to, we'll have to see. But to your question of what percentage of employees would move to digital, is that the question you asked me?
Yeah.
Yeah, would to work from home? That's what you asked. I would think in a 2 years time it would be 40% plus.
40% plus. Okay, great. Deepak, do you agree with the statement that decisions to hire get taken in the first 30 seconds of an interview?
So it's a trick question. If I tell you my true belief, my HR team will beat me up. Because it'll be okay. Answer is yes to me. Okay, but which means in first 30 seconds, 1 minute, you largely decide, and then you spend the rest of the interview to validate your hypothesis. However, the missing link, however, is most of the analysis and what is done before the candidate comes. So even before the candidate comes, you have created an image of what he or she is. You have done your diligence there behind that, and so you know the answer largely, right? And so, to me, yes, is the decision made in the first 1 minute or so? Answer is yes. But I still need the next 1 hour to validate it.
Great. And Deepak, do you think compensation structures will become more and more performance driven in the future? Yes or no?
What's the choice? If it's already not done, the company is in trouble.
Great, great. This is wonderful, Deepak. Thanks so much for being honest and absolutely fun-loving. Ranesh, your pick. Who do you want to go with?
Okay, I'll go with Saurabh now.
Great.
So, your favorite Hollywood or Bollywood character, Saurabh?
The big man.
And why?
Big man, Amitabh Bachchan. And the reason for it is, he came back like a phoenix. His diversity about what characters he can play, and being the best in the job.
Fill in the blank. The biggest opportunity for HR is
to shape the business of future.
a sportsman that you relate to maximum.
Roger Federer.
Why?
Again, consistency of performance, sheer consistency. At 38, if you are world number 2, world number 1, and consistently, being on number 1 for more than 200 weeks, I think it's consistency of whatever we do. It has to be there. And he exemplifies being there, and being humble, being honest, and and being the right brand ambassador for the.
A book that's influenced you maximum, Saurabh?
This is a book, I'm actually reading right now, and it's about what you do is who you are. It's a book by Ben Horowitz. It's really a very powerful book, because we might say a lot of things. At the end of the day, our actions, our behavior is what people see us. So what you do is who you are.
And your favorite Hollywood or Bollywood movie? All-time fun to watch?
All-time fun. That will be a tough one, That'll be a. But many of them, Ronesh, many of them. Many of them. I love when there have been, some real classics in different eras. So I will just leave it there. I won't want to name one of them, because I have enjoyed many of them in different.
And if there's one thing that you look for in a candidate, what would it be?
I think curiosity to learn. I think, as Deepak said, if we do not, each one of us, don't believe that we continue to be a student at whatever stage we are and learn, and that from know it all to learn it all. As Satya says that, I think that's.
And what would you like to be remembered as when you hang your boots, Saurabh?
A fine human being.
And one person that you idolize more than any other?
A lot of different people do different things. I have, but I have seen, in terms of driving purpose, values, and, running an organization with integrity, Mr. Premji himself. I have the opportunity to work with him very closely. So that's one person which I have seen. I have seen, With and I were together at G, and I have seen how ruthlessly you can run a business. The time with Welch, that those eras which are there. I have seen a Satya who's completely changed an organization's culture by just driving empathy. What it was, and I know that organization very well from when Bama was running it, and when Satya. How individual leaders can make such a impactful change on people.
Wonderful. And last question, what gives you maximum joy at work?
I think for me, joy at work is the purpose at which we are setting up. 67% of Wipro's economic interests are associated with the Azim Premji Foundation. And so for every dollar earned by the company, 67 cents go there. And the kind of work they are doing, just to highlight, even in this last 100 days, 3 million people were fed, migrant labor were fed across 11 cities in this country. You know, their food being cooked in all the Wipro premises, or setting up a hospital in Maharashtra in flat 28 days. I think these things makes us do better so that we can do much more of work for the foundation, give more money to the foundation to do good work for the country.
Thank you very much, Saurabh. That was wonderful. Over to you, Agam.
Thank you. And Amit, are we ready?
Yeah. Okay. I'm feeling like Karan Johar. I hope you have a hamper.
I have
I'm
an
feeling like
hamper,
on a Karan
absolutely,
Johar
Amit.
show. So I hope you have a
Yeah.
hamper.
Your beer mugs will reach all of you for the spectacular performance that you guys have been giving so far. But irrespective of the beer mug, Amit, here we go. I know you are a very, very avid reader, and you read more than anybody else that I've ever known. But one book that you will advise, that you have read very recently, or one of your favorites, whichever.
So I'll take two. One obviously is Hard Thing About Hard Things, Ben Horowitz, like Saurabh said. I think that's a book that everyone should read. It influenced me a lot. And the book that I've just finished last week is Poor Economics. And I would advise everyone to read because it really tells you about poverty and developing world and how it means, and it kind of breaks a lot of myth, by Abhijit Banerjee, the Indian who just won the Nobel Prize last year.
Great. And one public figure that you idolize, Amit?
Mahatma Gandhi.
And why?
Mahatma Gandhi, I think, one, obviously he's a liberal like me, but beyond sharing the same sun sign with him, I think there are a lot of qualities that I like about him. He was very driven. He was very purposeful. He found motivation within himself to achieve his purpose. I think, and he had the ability to take people along with him. So I think those were the couple of traits that I always thought are very good.
And Amit, if you could be any one animal or a bird, what would that be and why?
Yeah, okay. I'd be a tiger. Yeah, I think what resonates with me is focus on the goal. I think hard work to achieve it, and go about it in a manner, tenacity and patience to go about it and execute. So I think those are the three things that a tiger does very well.
And a very good looking one, and as well as a very ferocious one. You missed two others. But
I don't know about the good looking. My wife would disagree, but we'll leave it there.
But ferocious, we all can agree. But Amit, what are a couple of things that you look for in a candidate, and what is something that is a strict no-no for you?
Well, the strict no-no is easy. Coming late for an interview is a strict no-no. And I think what I look for is, I think Saurabh also said that. Obviously, one is curiosity to learn. I think that is something. And the other thing that I always look in the candidate is, what is the vision the candidate has for him or herself, and how is this job going to fit in? Why is the candidate here? More than saying, I'm here for brand or for role or for money. What is it going to do for the candidate? Because if that question is not answered by this job, then after 18 months, he or she would be wanting to do something else inside or out, outside the organization. I think that's what is important.
Your favorite holiday destination, Amit?
There are many, but Goa is one where I think I've gone many times. I'm a beach person, so anything that offers me a good beach, let life pass by, I just go for it.
Wonderful. We all love beaches. Amit, if you were to go 3 months back and somebody was to tell you that this is what post lockdown life would be and this is what you would have achieved as an organization, would you have taken it any day, or what would you have done differently?
Sorry, I didn't get the question. What would I have done differently from what we did in the COVID?
Yes. And would you have taken whatever you have done any day? I mean, are you happy with what you've been able to do? And what would you have done in addition?
Oh, absolutely. I will take what we have done any day. I think the challenge that Trevor and I keep talking is about how do we sustain what we have done and make it a part of our fabric. What would have I done better? I think we would have really looked at enabling our people better from a BCP standpoint. If we, if we could do that, the 10, 15 days that we had, I would have focused a lot more on that to enable people. That's something that we've done.
And what is the first thing that you will do, Amit, once this, this pandemic is behind us?
Well, give a few people hugs so that the social distancing is over and go out drinking with my buddies.
Great. And on that, Amit, the last question, your choice of poison during the lockdown days.
Well, to be very honest, I used the first half of lockdown for first 60 days to go without alcohol and kind of detox. But my poison is a single malt.
Single malt. Great. Wonderful. Thanks so much, Amit. And Ranesh, back to you. Who do you want to take next?
Okay, I'll go with the one in front of me, Amitav.
All yours, Ranesh.
So what will be the biggest shocker this COVID times?
I think getting myself medically educated about coronavirus. I've never gone so deep on any disease.
And your favorite comic character as a child?
Calvin and Hobbes.
And a book that you want to read and reread?
I think that would be 9 Lives by Dalrymple.
A sportsman that resonates with your personality?
I think Michael Phelps. I don't have the mastery like he has, but I would aspire to be.
And one thing that you miss in the lockdown?
I think just going out for a movie with the family and perhaps meeting up a couple of friends.
And one thing in a candidate that impresses you?
Drive, passion.
And what is a put off?
Overconfidence.
And what would Amitabh be like to be remembered as when he hangs his boat?
As someone who made a difference to ITC and perhaps played a part in its journey of diversification.
And a Hollywood, Bollywood hero or heroine that you idolize?
Jack Nicholson.
And a movie that has left its maximum imprint in your mind?
The Good, Bad and the Ugly. It's an old Western. Still resonates.
Right. And one thing that, say in 2022, that you will do when everything is behind us?
I think I'm going to learn meditation. That's something which has been pending in my list.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you very much. Agam, over to you. You have Rohit.
Yes,
so if you
thanks.
need help, let me know. But go first. And
Okay,
I will
so
come
why
in
don't-
later. But we can't leave him.
We can't leave him. Let's do double trouble with more.
Absolutely. Double trouble with Rohit.
That's not a part of the script.
You're the last one, so you get the best. So that's double trouble. But Rohit, I mean, I've loved your passion for tennis, and I was hearing it. So, which is your favorite tennis star?
Again, Federer. Yeah, Federer and McEnroe.
Wow, so we've got 3 Federer fans in the house. Saurav, you and me. That's great. What do you like about Federer? There's so much to like about him.
I think his temperament. I mean, I think from what I understand, he was very aggressive and angry when he was kind of growing up, and I think how he's tempered himself over the years, and just the way he conducts himself, his temperament is phenomenal.
Great. And I saw you think when I was asking Amit the question on animal and bird. So if you were to be one animal or a bird, what would be the closest to you and why?
Eagle. I mean, very clearly the eagle. I mean, just what I love about the eagle is, just to be able to soar so high in the sky, and get the wind against you, and kind of both ride the different waves of wind over there, and then you can still see the small ant, on the earth and swoop down whenever you want to. So you can come to earth when you want to, and you can just see the emptiness and the expanse of the sky when you want to.
Great. And Rohit, I mean, all of you are very, very successful, professionals in your own lives. But if you were to give an advice to, any young, HR aspirant, or maybe any young leader, what would that be, based on your learnings of 25 years?
I think the same advice I've given my children, both my kids. I mean, I've told them, work on employability. The employers will follow you. I think we just follow too much the employers. And as long as I'm employable, I don't think I need to I don't think I need to worry about a job. There'll be somebody who will want me to work for them.
Beautiful. Wonderful answer. And Rohit, I mean, a book that you've read recently, which you would like to recommend?
There's a book called Alchemist by Paulo Coelho, and I think it's a very simple book. My height is pretty low, so I can't read very thick, very big books. I use thin books. Alchemist is really about finding the gold in yourself. Instead of traveling the entire world, you travel the entire world to find gold, but actually it's in your backyard. So it's really about what you make out of your life, and it's still one of my favorites.
Great. Ranesh, your turn.
Oh shucks. You're serious.
Yeah. We had promised we'll speak the truth. You said you wanted to be a sportsman. Why not a movie star? Tell me that.
I think I'll be disaster in movies. I think I'm pretty pragmatic, so I think sports was something that I was good at, I was passionate about, and it was just it's really excited me. I mean, and like I was saying, Ranesh, I mean, I've really built. I haven't been a sportsman in true sports forms, but I've tried to play sports in my career, and I've tried to live my career being a sportsman.
See, Rohit, my childhood dream was to direct a movie. And I was hoping you would say yes, and I could sign you off.
It'll be a disaster.
But it appears I have very little chance, and I'll need the help and support of friends like Saurabh, Amitabh, Deepak, and Amit to convince you. But I'm still going to hedge my risk and my bets, and I'm sure they will succeed where I fail.
Wasn't the right guy, I must say.
So tell me, what has been the most embarrassing moment of yours?
I think I'm not very good at remembering names. So kind of, so in that sense, on different occasions as I meet people, not knowing who I'm speaking with, a few moments like those.
Right. And what is the secret ambition that you harbor in your heart, which you have not revealed to anybody?
Secret ambition. I think it's about just about living the life the way it needs to be lived. It's not about aspiring for what you don't have. It doesn't mean you don't have aspirations, but not aspiring for not what you don't have in a negative sense, but just living the life the way you want to live it on your terms. Not letting any veil, or anything else come in the middle. That's really been something I've been trying to live my life with, and that's what I hope I continue as I go forward as well.
Wonderful. Just the last question. You think after this COVID-19 is over and done with, you see more HR heads becoming CEOs?
I think if an HR head aspires to be a CEO, he or she will become one. Irrespective of COVID or not. I just see a lot of HR heads, I'm not sure they want that job for whatever reason. And if they want it, they'll get it. Because I think they have all the qualities, they have all the, they are true business partners. And like I was talking in one of my earlier questions as well, what I want to see in a leader today is far more empathy and far more human connect than I've seen leaders in the past. IQ is one part, but IQ can be got through a lot of AI, machine learning, and a lot of people who can do stuff for you. So I think an HR person has the empathy. HR person has the pulse of the people, has the pulse of the business. If they want to, they will get it.
Wonderful. I'll just ask Agam one question to Deepak and Amit, because we have grilled Rohit. I don't want him to feel that we have been unfair to him.
We have got tougher questions to them.
I thought mine was
one. So Deepak, 2025, one thing of HR which will be done and dusted with.
One thing of HR which will be done and dusted with. Nothing comes to mind.
Something that will change? Something that you see it losing its relevance in years to come?
No, I don't see it losing relevance. So the role still remains supporting the business and managing people. The methods will change, and that will, those are continuous things which will change. What will change, of course, is managing people with increased ML, AI, robotics, with analytics, analyticizing people behavior. So those are things which will come, but at the end of the day, there is still, HR has to still work with heart. That won't change. The methods may change, but the output and what's required, I don't see too much changing. Of course, it'll have to get much more oriented to business solutioning and business rather than just keeping to the word of managing people. But I don't see too much changing. I don't see the role diminishing in any way or becoming, for all I think humanness, as we become more and more, remote working, analytical, AI, ML, etc., the biggest need that people will increasingly feel, I think, is humanness. Humanizing relationships, be it with the customer or your employee or with society, humanness is a short supply. It's something greatly in short supply, and that will be a differentiator, and that's that responsibility of us HR leaders.
Thank you. Amit, do you see organizations shrinking in the year to come? And
no.
Roles getting amalgamated?
I think what I see is resource fluidity. When I see a lot of people being moved to do one job to the other, so the fluidity of the resources would be there. People would say, I have multiple skills, and why should I only work in one function? You should give me options to do multiple jobs across organization to do. I think that's where the future would be. So I think that's what I would see more.
Thank you very much, Amit. Agam, over for the audience section.
No, thank you. I clubbed the audience questions in the questions that we asked Ronesh, and I think there were about over 60, 70 questions that were asked. So we narrowed down and we asked some of those questions in the questions that we had. But no, thank you so much to everybody on the panel, and thank you, Ronesh. I think time just flew by. We didn't even realize that we've had close to about 100 minutes of engaging conversation with all of you, and I think I thank each one of you for your honesty, for your transparency, for your candor, with which we kind of got your answers. It's a testimony to the fact that the number of people that we started with have continued to be logged on onto their devices. So I think it's been absolutely fantastic hosting you, and I'm sure the audience has also enjoyed as much we enjoyed putting this all together. So once again, thank you from all of us. At Executive Access for coming together as panelists and sharing your thoughts with us. And do stay tuned for the audience. We have a series of webinars continuing, and I think we're trying our level best to put together wonderful panels on different subjects. So I think we'll continue to do that job. And stay tuned and stay safe. And thank you so much to everybody. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Have a good evening.
Thanks so much.
Bye.
Yeah, thanks for having us. Bye. See you.
Thank you, everyone. And it's a
Bye.
pleasure hosting all of you.
Bye, Ronesh. Bye, Agam.
Bye,
Bye, Saurabh.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.